Hi, I'm Austin Rosenthal with Social Musings by Austin, and this is a new piece of original fiction based on actual events that occurred during my trip to Aruba in November and December. The time was 4:30 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time on Saturday, November 13th, 2021. The location was the Bikini Resort on Manchego Beach in Aruba. Alex had not wanted to come on this vacation. He and his partner Andy had been fighting in their New York City apartment right up until they boarded yesterday's nonstop flight to Aruba. Andy said he needed to get away, and Alex reluctantly agreed. Alex had told himself that he needed a break from his high-stress corporate job. He thought that maybe a beach vacation would reduce his irritability, which was really causing the corresponding relationship problems because of his short temper. Now, Alex knew he loved Andy, but he just didn't really know how to show it. You see, work had always been Alex's salvation. Anytime something bad happened, Alex would just throw himself into his job with renewed fervor. It was his coping mechanism. So now the couple was here in Aruba on a last-minute getaway, staying at the fanciest boutique-style hotel on the island, the Bikini. Well, the hotel was stunningly beautiful, and they had received a complimentary suite upgrade upon arrival. Once unpacked, they caught the last of the Aruban sunshine as they walked the beach at sunset and then dined in one of the Caribbean's top outdoor romantic dining restaurants. Now, on their first full day in Aruba, they had sipped margaritas on the beach and lounged by the pool, enjoying each other's company. Well, Aruba is known for its water sports, and all along the beach, there were these little shacks offering all sorts of activities. Boat rides, snorkeling tours, rafts for rent. And of course, Andy had wanted to rent a jet ski at some point during their trip. They would maybe even take a snorkeling trip aboard the Jolly Pirate ship one afternoon. Oh, and there was Renaissance Island with all those Instagram pictures with flamingos. That was also on Andy's list. Now in their hotel room, Andy came up with the fateful idea. Hey, let's rent one of those two-person floats and watch the sunset from the water. We can even have the hotel send us a bottle of champagne. Wouldn't that be nice? Alex thought about it. It was moments like these where Alex knew he needed to be more adventurous to save his precious relationship with Andy. He remarked, "Okay, let's do it." 10 minutes later, at 4:40 Aruba Standard Time, p.m., at the Meteorological Department Aruba, located in the capital in downtown Oranjestad, Aruba, the forecasters were perplexed. Over the last few hours, weather conditions had deteriorated across the entire Caribbean, and the sea's currents had strengthened significantly around the main tourist area of Aruba, like Baby Beach, Mango Halto, Manchego Beach, and Rashi. Things had even gotten so precarious that the department heads were about to issue a small craft advisory for the entire island. The advisory notice would read something like this. An alert for strong winds will become in effect as by Saturday evening until further notice. A small craft advisory will become in effect by Saturday 6 p.m. Mariners operating small vessels must exercise caution over open waters and near coastal regions, especially over the east to northwest area. Precautionary preparedness actions. The general public are urged to take this into account. Sea users, bathers, and mariners are urged to exercise extreme caution over open waters and near coastal regions, as the strong wind will cause locally quite rough seas. Alex and Andy had just caught the water sports activity director before the end of his shift. He had explained that the floats were only to be used in the daylight, and it was now 5:30 p.m., but for an extra $10, he had agreed to let them return the raft in the morning. So they were now just off Manchego Beach, Aruba, on a raft in the Caribbean Sea, about 25 yards away from the beach. Waves were lapping the 10-foot by 10-foot inflatable floating device, and they were romantically lying side by side, looking up at the sky and sipping their champagne. "Isn't this perfect?" said Andy. Alex grunted agreement as he took a big gulp of champagne. Why does he always ask me if I'm okay? That's so annoying sometimes. Can he just relax and let the moment be, Alex thought. Then, God, I am really a terrible person if this is what I'm thinking right at this moment. Try and relax. Andy looked over at Alex and stated, "You know I love you, right?" "I know," was all Alex could muster. He sighed as he drank his champagne flute dry and had Andy pour him another. Maybe I can just drink the whole time I'm here to get through this, Alex thought. Between Andy's profession of love and Alex's wandering mind, neither of them noticed that their raft had floated outside of the buoys demarking the safe swimming area. Saturday, November 13th, on the beach, Manchego Beach, Aruba, 5:45 p.m. Aruba Atlantic Standard Time. Sarah and her girlfriends had just flown in from Boston that afternoon. They were staying at the Divvy all-inclusive resorts, and while her two best friends were in the room getting ready, Sarah was enjoying a late afternoon stroll on the beach. She could not get over all of the ocean's different shades of blue in contrast with the billowing white clouds and the golden sand that seemed to stretch for miles. You see, Sarah had never really been to the Caribbean before. Sure, she had hit the beach in Cape Cod and there was the Jersey Shore, yet Aruba seemed breathtaking to her. She took out her iPhone 12 Pro out of her pocket to take a picture or two for her Snapchat story. Snap, snap. She looked down at her phone to check out her handiwork. It was really hard to see with the sun's glare, but she thought the images looked good. She was just about to add a filter when she blurted out loud, "Wait a minute!" In her picture, she could see a float with two men at a distance out in the sea. She looked up and blinked her eyes to see if it was true. The scene was so hard to make out as the sun was deep on the horizon right in her eyes, only about 25 minutes away from setting in the direction looking out to sea. She strained her eyes. Off in the distance, it seemed like the two men were waving frantically. They must have been 50 yards away from the beach now, and their raft was getting further away. It even sounded like they might have been screaming, "Help!" In that moment, Sarah weighed her options. She knew she was not the strongest swimmer. She looked around. Most of the beachgoers had already packed up for the day. Unfortunately, she was pretty much alone on this stretch of beach. She knew she couldn't use her phone as she was on airplane mode avoiding cellular roaming charges. She didn't even know if she could get cell phone service here on the beach. She waved at them and screamed back, "I'm getting help!" and raced back to her room at the Divvy. Now 100 yards off Manchego Beach, 5:50 Atlantic Standard Time, on a raft in the Caribbean Sea. Alex and Andy were frantic. "Andy, did she see us?" "Alex, I don't know. Did you bring your phone?" "I did. Let me see if I can get cell service," as Andy desperately noticed he had one bar left. "I don't even know what number to call, Alex," cried Andy. "Is 911 the deal here?" "I don't have a clue. Damn it, Andy. Why did you even come up with this stupid idea?" replied Alex hysterically. And as Andy Googled Aruba emergency number, at that point, his cell phone went out of range. Meanwhile, back at the Divvy Resort on Drift Beach, Aruba, 5:55 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time. Sarah was completely out of breath after running the 100 yards back to her hotel room. The Divvy Aruba all-inclusive resort was located next to Manchego Beach and had its own beachfront area. And as she rushed in, one of her girlfriends snarked, "What's the rush?" "Some people are being swept out to sea out there. Where's the room phone?" Sarah asked as she gasped for air. She rushed over to the phone in between the two queen beds in their double room, and she dialed 0 to get to the front desk. "Good evening, how may I direct your call?" asked the friendly-sounding operator. And in the background noise of the phone, Sarah could hear the sounds of the steel drum player playing in the lobby, welcoming the new guests, a scene she had participated in only 15 minutes prior. How quickly things had changed. Sarah screamed into the receiver, "I just saw two men floating out to sea at the beach. They need help. Please call someone." "Okay, miss. Calm down. Let me connect you with the police. Just one moment." Aruba Police Headquarters, downtown Oranjestad, Aruba, 6 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time. The call had just come in from a tourist at the Divi Hotel. The witness had said that she had seen two men being swept out to sea on a float. Now, this had happened before, or something like it. Back in August 2021, a 35-year-old woman from Maryland had been snorkeling at Baby Beach on the southern end of Aruba. She had swam too far away from the beach, and the strong Caribbean current had taken her away. Her remains had never been found. Sergeant Michel Audubert was the ranking officer on duty that night at police headquarters. He pulled out his checklist for marine search and rescues, although he knew them by heart. In fact, he had been the one who had led the search for the missing Maryland woman in vain. Audubert had hoped he would never have to deal with a similar situation, but here we were, back in my worst nightmare, he thought. Step one of the procedures was to contact the Dutch Marines at their base on the other side of the island, because they had massive resources, including search and rescue vessels and a helicopter. Michel knew that the Marines and Aruba's own Corps Politique were the best hope at saving these two tourists. In the back of his mind, he was hoping that this was all just a false alarm. Maybe the woman believed she had seen something that she had not. Maybe she was just messing with them. Please, God, let that be the case, he thought. Savanetta Marine Barracks, Savanetta, Aruba, 6:10, Saturday, November 13th. Commander Vanderbeek took the call. Sergeant Audubert sounded alarmed. Yet this is what the Dutch Marines trained for. Moments like these. Vanderbeek looked out of his office window. The sun was setting. He knew that it would be very dark very soon, and that search and rescue efforts would need to cease at 2000 hours, which is 8 p.m. Now 0.5 miles off the coast of Aruba on a raft in the Caribbean Sea at 6:30 p.m. And it was pitch black now around the raft, and the sea was getting rougher. Andy and Alex were getting into open waters. Andy had his phone flashlight on. Alex heard his partner crying softly. "Alex, my battery's almost gone. I'm sorry, I forgot to charge it earlier," said Andy in between sniffles. Alex was in shock. Why is this happening to me, he thought. I can't believe this is how it's going to end. It doesn't have to be this way, though. I'm sure someone will find us. I know they'll be looking for us, he prayed over and over. On board the Dutch Marine helicopter over the Caribbean Sea, Aruba, the time was now 7:55 p.m. "Sir, we've scoured the most likely spots they would be, and we've found nothing. Do you want us to make another pass by? It's going to be dark soon." Commander Vanderbeek looked out on the open ocean from the spot in the cockpit. The elements looked downright nasty down there, because even in the dark with the spotlight on, he could see the white crests of the large waves below. There may be two individuals out there lost and very scared. We need to keep looking. We must find them. Let's do one more flyby, the commander ordered. Meanwhile, in downtown Oranjestad at 8:15 p.m. that same evening, at the Aruba Today headquarters, the staffers at the island's only English-speaking newspaper focused on tourists were shocked to their core. Not since the murder of Natalie Holloway in 2005 had there been such a terrible tragedy. Now, as they posted the following message on their Facebook page, they shuddered as they thought how the story might end. Note to readers, this is the actual post from Aruba Today. Breaking news. There are currently tourists lost at sea on two big floats. They were in the area of Manchego Beach. The police is conducting a search. Our prayers go out to them, and we hope they can be found safe and sound. We will keep you informed. At 11:30, Alex and Andy were now 2.2 miles off the coast of Aruba. The rain had just stopped. Alex and Andy were shivering, wet, and in only their bathing suits. Waves were crashing around their raft. They'd seen no one, and they had lost sight of the island of Aruba for hours, it seemed. Alex knew this was probably the end. Am I going to cry? Am I going to die? Am I going to get to say goodbye? He thought. With all of his courage, he mustered, I love you, Andy. I know I might not have shown it to you, but I do, he said stoically. Andy burst into fresh tears. All I wanted for us was to have a nice vacation together. I know, Andy. I know. Sunday, November 14th, 2021. Location, Aruba Police Headquarters, downtown Oranjestad, Aruba. The time is now 5 a.m. Atlantic Standard Time. Michel had lost count of how many coffees had sustained him through the long night. After several communications with Commander Vanderbeek, Michel knew that the tourists suspected of drifting out to sea had not been found. The search would continue, beginning at daylight, sharply at 0630 hours. As Michel looked at a nautical map of the Netherlands Antilles and the surrounding areas, he contemplated three potential likely scenarios. 1, the tourists were still out there waiting to be found somewhere in the open ocean. 2, the tourists had returned safely unnoticed somehow. Or 3, the witness was unreliable and that the incident never actually occurred. Sergeant Audubert really hoped that it was either option 2 or 3. And as he picked up the phone to call the Aruban press outlets, he prayed that this new day would end with positive news. So what's likely to happen? Are the tourists found or not? Did this mysterious and disturbing event ever really happen? Tune in next week for the ending.